In 71, Major Chandpuri was there. He came on a SOS call requesting for fire support, and he wanted the Air Force to help him. And at the first light, the hunters started moving from Jaisalmer. And then they played merry hell. The brigadier had said breakfast at Longewala, lunch at Ramgarh, and dinner at Jaisalmer, and they would have done it also. But our hunters, they really raped them off. Those who proved their worth in the war, they proved later on for the humanity also. You know, this is the book I am going to speak, written by Colonel Kulvinder Singh, the same unit in which I joined as a young officer in 1973. This gentleman was the battery commander, and before me, you know what happened? There's a little history. I was commissioned in 185 Light Regiment, which was the only camel pack unit of Indian Army. This was in Bikaner. The regiment was raised in 64. Now, as time passed, I'll shortcut on this. We were upgraded from camel pack to khachar pack, that is mule pack. And from Bikaner, we moved to Binaguri. So life has been like that. About the Guns of Longewala, I would like to stress. In 71, 6 months prior to the commencement of the war, General Manik Shah came and he addressed the people in our Konk area. And he said, "Gentlemen, camels are not going to do any favor to you. Might as well leave them." So the camels were left there, and we all, for some times, were without even vehicles. But then the vehicles did come. And courtesy, the intelligence information of our country, you know, we have been repeatedly getting setbacks on the int side. You know, I don't know how much of you know the topography of Jaisalmer and places around. We were to go and operate on the Tannod side, where the famous Ghantiali Devi ka mandir, Tannod Devi, is there. However, our access got changed automatically at mid of night, and the intelligence courtesy failure, we were to move towards Longewala. Now, last I visited there in 2019, in fact, all we officers in 10 driven cars from Delhi, we had gone right up to Longewala in 19, sir. And we went on that road, and even my automatic Santro could, you know, cross certain dunes, and we went there. Imagine those days, there were no sand tires, nothing. This subunit, the Romeo battery, we call it, like company in infantry, we call it batteries and squadrons in the armored corps. So 1853 battery led by Major Kulvinder Singh then, who had just joined after an instructional tenure in the school of RT Devlali, sir. So they moved in complete darkness. The sound of the tanks of the Pakis were there, and in that, short of Longewala, this battery was deployed by Major Kulvinder Singh himself. And that was the time when from Longewala height, where Major Chandpuri was there, who was commanding a company of 23 Punjab, he came on a SOS call requesting for the RT support, for the fire support, and he wanted the Air Force or the RT to help him. Now, as luck would have it, it was 1971, and we had hunters there at Jaisalmer. Hunters that time didn't have the night capability to fly. However, Kulvinder, he responded very fast, and Captain Datta of the battery, he moved in the darkness. Well, he was received short of the height climb. I've been there to that height, and I can explain after a little time. There at the ground, near that height, Datta was received by Chandpuri. They literally hugged him and they went on the top. Now imagine in this darkness, there are certain requirements when you deploy a battery. There were no route charts, no map, nothing. God was probably with them. They deployed a battery consists of 6 guns, and these were the heavy mortars. So guns were deployed, and by then Captain Datta, he had reached a place, he was given a little comfortable place. Imagine, once he goes up, and it was the artillery, first round was fired by 185-3 mortar battery of 185 light. And the Chandpuri and his by then his 80 men were surviving out of 125. These many were already lost. So they had a nice jaikara, Punjabi mein, and subsequently the night started passing out, and at the first light, the hunters started moving from Jaisalmer. And then they played merry hell. What happened to Pakistanis were, again, their int failure, I would say. The brigade, infantry brigade, with an armored regiment was moving on this axis. And imagine that brigadier had said, breakfast at Longewala, lunch at Ramgarh, and dinner at Jaisalmer, and they would have done it also. But our hunters, they really raped them off. Their Air Force never came up for their help. That was misfortune for them, I would say, and a very bright thing for us. Now the book is, in spite of all this we have done, there has been no recognition in the war history of Indian Army of 1971 war. So this book, it highly appreciates the effort of this company of Punjab Regiment and others, and especially the Air Force. But I am here today to stress that the efforts put in by this particular unit should also be highlighted. It has knocked the doors of South Block. We have started getting the acknowledgement, and soon things will come to our favor. I today representing the unit to speak in front of you, sir. A word about the gentleman, just to give you an old thing now. That time the GOC was General Khambata, the CRT was famous Brigadier Nathan, and CO of our regiment was Colonel S.L. Dhawan. And the battery commanders of the unit were Major Shri Om, Papa Battery we call it, Major Bhajan Singh was Cubic Battery, and Major Kulvinder was Romeo. Later on, after 3 days, just imagine, after 3 days, when we were slightly embedded here, this battery was moved to 11 Div. We were moved to Barmer. Since we were not holding on there, our story nobody could hear. Even our commanding officer was not knowing the facts, and that's how we were left behind. However, gentlemen, let me tell you, the efficiency of these officers proved so well. Captain Datta, who took the shots, and the first shot there, retired. They were generally all EC officers, slightly of higher age group who joined. He retired as Commissioner Income Tax, Pune. Then the other gentleman, he retired as Deputy Controller and Auditor General of India. The third gentleman, he was Captain Beg. Imagine, he has got a touch of royalty in him. He was born in 46 to Nawab Colonel Mirza Khadir Beg, who was the commanding officer of African Cavalry Guards of Hyderabad state, grandson of Nawab Nazir Jang Bahadur, Defence Secretary Hyderabad, and he, Aziz, served later as President of Planning and Economic Forum, Riyadh, worked for investment opportunities of NRI Indians in the entire Gulf state. So the gentlemen, those who proved their worth in the war, they proved later on for the humanity also. And with these words, I finish my time. I am an obedient person and a cricketer. I don't take extra time. Thank you very much for bearing me.